A lot of developments in the Georgia prosecutions against Donald Trump and others related to the 2020 election. You're right where you need to be. You're on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Hit the free subscribe button and let's get to it. I'm Michael Popok at the intersection of law, politics, and Georgia criminal law. Got two different developments. I'm going to weave them together. The first one is we've got a filing now by Donald Trump, as expected, to actually dismiss the indictment outright because he won the election. Even though it's a temporary condition, it may seem like a very long and arduous path that we're on for the next 4 years. It hasn't even started yet until January 20th, but one day it will be over. So the question that we all have, both in the New York criminal prosecution and here in Georgia with the new filing by Donald Trump's lawyers, is why do we have to dismiss the indictment just because he's tied up for the next 4 years serving in the office of the presidency? Because they say, well, if we continue the prosecution, it'll be impaired and impeded in his duties and his constitutional duties. All right. Well, doesn't time heal all wounds and resolve all temporary immunities and separation of powers issues? I say yes. They sent this to the Georgia Appellate Court. It's the Court of Appeals in Georgia. There's two levels of appeals in Georgia. First stop is usually the Court of Appeals, and the second stop is the Georgia Supreme Court. Why is it up on appeal? Because if you recall, and if not, I'll tell you straight, Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA, obtained from a grand jury an indictment against Donald Trump and at the time about 16 or 17 other people. She entered into a plea deal, or the four of them entered into plea deals, including Ken Chesebro, who now thinks better of his plea deal where he took a felony conviction and wants to reverse it. That's the other development in Georgia. But that all got mired in a few things. One, the trial court judge, Judge McAfee, decided that maybe it wasn't a good idea for Fani Willis to date somebody in her office that was on the prosecution team. I don't know what that has to do with the evidence and the indictment against Donald Trump, but it certainly tied things up and made for some interesting television viewing, since everything was televised, about whether and who and how Fani Willis conducted her dating life. Like, who cares? She's the prosecutor. Grand jury indicted. Let's get on with it, man. But it got tied up for over a year. It's up on appeal now because ultimately the trial judge McAfee said, no, I'm not going to dismiss the indictment because Fani Willis, even though I think she exercised poor personal judgment, his words, not mine, about dating this person in her office, I'm not going to dismiss the indictment and give the criminal defendants who were indicted a pass because she went to Napa Valley with somebody. Sort of it. I agree with that, by the way. But, he excoriated Fani Willis in a way that I doubt he would do if it was a male prosecutor, which gave an opening to Donald Trump and others to move for an appeal that she should be removed and the indictment dismissed. If she's removed, trust me, the indictment's going to get dismissed. The next prosecutor is not going to go after Donald Trump. So that was all up on appeal. Now, we thought there was going to be a hearing actually on the 5th of December, an oral argument before this Court of Appeals about this issue. And out of the blue, about 2 weeks ago, actually before the election, they said oral argument is postponed until further notice. Postponed like indefinitely. We're like, all right, well, that's not a good sign. And now, of course, with the win on November 5th, in every court that has something involving Donald Trump on the other side of the V as a defendant, he's filing this kind of motion. Letitia James, for the people of the state of New York, has a $450 million judgment pending against Donald Trump that's up on appeal in New York. No, that should be vacated, thrown out. Take that piece of paper and toss it, throw it into the trash. He's now the president. He doesn't have to pay his debt. I don't know where it said that in the Constitution, but they filed one of those, a letter demanding that, and Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, ignored it. In the New York criminal conviction of Donald Trump, the 34-count felony conviction, we're going to go to sentencing. And he's, oh, no, can't sentence me. In fact, throw out the indictment, even though it was for pre-presidential conduct in 2016. I can't continue to be bothered with sentencing. I'm not sure that's going to work either, by the way. And then we got Georgia right on cue. Another lawyer, same argument. Steve Sadow, the lawyer for Donald Trump. We have a supremacy clause problem. We have a separation of powers problem. You can't impede a president-elect or a future president while he's in office with an indictment about stuff he did before. And by the way, they may be right about that. You know, there is a unique superpower of almost like a force field around the presidency, not because it's Donald Trump, just because of the way our Constitution is written in prior precedent, that would, I think, protect him from continue to be prosecuted during his 4-year term, but not after. As the New York prosecutors told the New York judge, time heals this temporary immunity problem. We'll do the sentencing when it comes out in 2029, when he's done with his office. Then we'll sentence him, or sentence him now and postpone it, and postpone the actual serving of the sentence until after he comes out. That same thing should apply here in Georgia. And if I were the Georgia Court of Appeals, which of course I'm not, and they're looking for a way to get out of this case, I would look at this paper and say, no, we're not going to throw out the prosecution. We will defer and abate the prosecution until such time as the defendant is no longer president. We know there's a finite time for that. Donald Trump might not think that, but we know there's a finite time for that. It's January 20th, 2029 at 12:01 p.m. He returns to the masses, as Alexander Hamilton and others have said in the past. He's no longer president cloaked with immunity. There's no separation of powers issue. There's no supremacy clause issue. And so I think what should happen at the Court of Appeals is that this should be denied. And they couch it as a jurisdictional argument. And I got it. I understood this is actually a better piece of writing than what his New York lawyers did, which is scary because the New York lawyers for Donald Trump are the ones that are going to be in the administration as the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. Let's leave that aside for a minute, that criticism. This paper was a little bit better, even though it was only 6 pages and the New York filing was 80 pages. And I understand the jurisdictional argument. The appellate court always has to look to see whether they have jurisdiction at any given time. And they don't have jurisdiction, they're saying, because the party across from them, the Trump party across from them, can't continue to be in a prosecution because he's about to be the president of the United States again. So they should delay it. I agree they shouldn't make him go through. I'd like to have him go through all of the process, but I don't think they're going to make him go through a criminal process while he continues to be a president-elect and then a president. Then let me switch gears and talk about the second development in Georgia, which will blow your mind, is about Ken Chesebro. Ken Chesebro had a law license. I'm not sure he has it much longer. He devised the fake elector scheme, along with John Eastman, also indicted in Georgia, and Peter Navarro, who went to jail for contempt of Congress, and now is coming back out to be Donald Trump's trade representative, or one of his trade representatives. And so Ken Chesebro, very early on, got squeezed by the prosecutor's office and pled guilty, as did Sidney Powell and Jenna Ellis and another guy. A lot of the lawyers did, and they all have their own problems. And Ken Chesebro has been indicted and has his own problems in places like Arizona. He was an unindicted co-conspirator in the DC election interference case. Well, now he's having buyer's or seller's remorse. He's like, well, why did I plead guilty? It looks like this indictment is going to go by the wayside. I mean, frankly, he probably should have waited a while before he pled guilty, but he pled guilty to crimes that he says he committed. I don't think he gets to backtrack on that now. Now, that'll go before Judge McAfee, the same judge I've been talking about who excoriated Fani Willis. And I don't think Judge McAfee is going to let the guy out of it. The grounds that he's citing, well, I didn't know that the prosecution and the prosecutor and all these things. Look, you do an allocution, which means you tell the court at the time of your plea that you understand the seriousness of the charges against you, that you're doing it out of your own free will, and you're taking the deal. And the prosecution still continues. I mean, if the entire prosecution got tossed somehow, which it's not going to, maybe. But, even the United States Supreme Court didn't think this was interesting enough to make the case come to federal court. A number of the co-conspirators, like Mark Meadows and Jeffrey Clark, try to take their cases across the street to federal court and out of state court. And the Supreme Court was like, not interested. So I don't think, here the short answer, Chesebro's not going to get out from under his indictment or his plea for felony conviction, just because of the developments related to Donald Trump. Only one person gets that superpower, gets that force field around him. It's the guy that commits crimes before he's president and then gets elected president, Silly us. We sent the guy back to the White House while he had pending criminal matters. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. But I'll continue to follow it all. You're here on Legal AF already. So just go out, boom, hit that free subscribe button. It looks like this blue pop filter. Hit the blue button. That's some voting I can get behind. Help us continue to grow our pro-democracy network and channel in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network. And for all things Legal AF, listen, here's the Popok calendar. Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. On Midas Touch, I do a new show called Popok Live at the intersection of law and politics. It's me, unvarnished, I almost said unfinished, unvarnished, unhinged, untethered, unfiltered. 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network. Wednesdays and Saturdays, 8 p.m., we got Legal AF, the podcast. And here, about every day, about every hour on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. So for all things Michael Popok and all things Legal AF, I'm punchy today. This is Michael Popok, and I'm reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.